Throttle, welcome to Axel's Garage. Okay, crank no start. We determined it was the fuel pump ground over a series of videos, and I'll link the playlist right up here. We fixed the ground, and it ran, and I was happy. And at the end of the last video, if you recall, I went in, ate dinner, left it running because the battery was low. I said, "Let me just let it run." We had dinner, came back out, it ran for about an hour, hour and a half. Turned it off, went in, got all cleaned up, and was going to take it to work that night. Got in it to go to work, nothing, crank, no start. So this ground issue, even though we fixed the ground, I have a feeling that the ground wire going to the pump, what was left of it, was just so brittle and so decayed probably on the inside. You can feel it, it feels rough, and we'll show you once we get it out, but it wasn't a consistent ground. So we knew we're gonna have to do the pump on this thing. So I ordered a pump in. Robbie and I came out here, he's behind the camera, the big dummy, and we had to siphon some gas out. So we got our Harbor Freight pump, and we got about, I would say about 20 gallons of gas in all. We overfilled 2 5-gallon jugs, then we filled the 5-gallon jug, and then we filled about a half to 2/3 of another 5-gallon jug. So it gets around 20, 21 gallons. His gauge did read full when we started. It reads an 1/8 now. We can't seem to get any more out of it. The tank feels light. So we don't know if the gauge was actually accurate. They could have had a gauge in there for, or put a sending unit in for a 40-gallon tank, which is possible. This is a 31-gallon tank, which would give that discrepancy. We don't know. We don't care. But what I did do so far was get my 2 vent hoses. So you got one big fat vent hose, like about a 5/8, that goes up to the filler neck. That's the sort of like the vent hose, I guess, that tells the gas pump to turn off. I don't know how that all works. And then there is a small one that goes back up front. They're on with hose clamps. We got them off. We unbolted our straps in the back and lowered the tank down a little bit, as you can see on the jack. And now we're trying to get the 2 pressured lines that you need a 5/8 lime wrench on, get them cracked, and then hopefully we can get the tank the rest of the way down and we can see what goes on. It's not an impossible job. It sucks in the street on your back. A lift would make it real easy. We think we got the gas out, like I said, and we're going to crawl under now and get these hoses out so we can get this tank out and show you what we were dealing with. All right, so I'm trying to one-hand it, and I can't because there's a nut on the line end that you got to hold back, and I can't one-hand it. I'm going to try to lower the tank down a little bit. Maybe I can sort of shimmy it along. I don't know. All right, these you got to hold back a little here. So what I did was I put a wrench across it and used the tank as the holdback. I didn't care if these pipes coming off the pump bent a little bit because the pump is garbage. Would definitely be easier if I get 2 hands up here, but I can't. And the reason why I can is, can you see where my finger is, Robbie? Going up that way?
Yeah.
The fill hose I could disconnect on the other side of the chassis rail, but not on this. I couldn't get to it and get it off because it's like rusted in place. So when we put it back up, we'll be able to do it without the fill hose in the way holding the tank up, because that's what's keeping the tank from coming down a little more. We should be able to lower the jack a little bit, and we shimmy to the side and get that fill hose over. There we go. Okay. And now we got the tank down completely. All right. Now the tank is down. Definitely some fuel left in it. pain in the ass. But what we'll do is we'll take this hose off and we could put it in. We could actually put the rubber hose on the new fitting here, and it'll be easier to slide this one in and get to that. And then this, instead of having this go over the chassis, we'll take this off here, we'll clean all that off, and we should be able to get it on easier than we can get it off. So that's what we'll do with that. And this is our ground. The wire back here it feels pretty good. I mean, I gave it a jiggle like this, and it was weird. It would work, and then it would just stop working without any wire movement at all. And when we were siphoning the pump, the tank out today, I told Robbie to turn the key on just to see what the gauge is reading. And when he turned the key on, the pump came on. And then he tried to start it up, and it didn't start. And then he turned the key off, turned the key back on, the pump came on again, turned the key off, turned the key on, then the pump didn't come on. So it was very sporadic, and I'm thinking it's the ground the whole time. So, all right, so got the tank out. What I'm trying to do here is just loosen up the grime that's in the lock ring so that we don't knock any of that grime into the tank itself when we take the pump out. This is definitely a replacement tank. I'm just surprised that there's so many rust spots on the top of it. So we went over it with a wire brush, got any heavy rust pitting off, and now Robbie's taking some degreaser and a scouring pad. We're going to clean the top half of the tank, and then we'll go over it with some thinner, and then I'm just going to spray a coat of rust encapsulated from Eastwood on it just to protect it so that it doesn't completely rust through. I don't know why there's so much rust on the top of the tank. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It could be just because it's a lousy aftermarket tank. Who knows? But at least we'll give it a fighting chance with a coat of rust encapsulated. Alright, I'm going to take the lock ring off. You're supposed to use a brass punch, but I don't have one that's thin. I only have big fat brass punches. So I put a little electrical tape on the end of my regular punch, and we're gonna see if we could knock this ring off. It should go that away. Let's see. I'm just going on one of these little tabs here. It sort of likes to move a little bit, so you got to go from one tab to another to keep it centered. You can see how it starts to move. There you go. It's only got to go like an eighth of a turn, and it pops off. So that's the brass locking ring. And now, once that's up, the pump itself should come up. So you're gonna come up, and you gotta finagle it through the hole. You see how there's still some scourge around here, so you want to try not to knock that scourge in, and try to wiggle it out. Alright, there you have it. It was a Carter pump, replacement pump. That's a good pump, Carter. I just think that whatever they did with the ground, teeing with that Scotch-Lite connector in there, that's what screwed this up. Carter is a good pump. Probably shouldn't have failed. These clips here, actually look at this, right? So these clamps here are supposed to hold this They're supposed to be pinched down tight. So this eventually, it could have already been leaking internally, because a lot of times, you know, if this hose breaks, swells and breaks too much, you got a big problem and your pump leaks internally inside the tank. These weren't even connected, these clamps. So I don't know if maybe the upper part was replaced, and they replaced the pump only, because you can replace just the pump. You can buy just the pump and it comes with the pump, and you put it in, and then it comes with like worm gear clamps, so these plastic clamps, and then you got to wire it up and into here. But look here, look up here. Oh wow, look at that right there. See that burning? Right, and that's probably from the bad ground. Right, ground not making a good ground contact, generating heat and resistance, and it burned it up. So this pump definitely time to go. All right, so now this ring here is welded to the pump, and what we're going to do is I'm just going to take a rag and try to do a little of that and blow out any of that stuff that's in the groove there, because there is an O-ring on the bottom here. Right, new O-ring comes with the pump, and my pump, I bought an Airtex pump, comes with a new lock ring. I didn't know it came with a new lock ring, so I ordered an AC Delco lock ring. They're only about $8. It's a good idea if you can get a new lock ring when you're replacing a pump. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to clean that up. We're going to wipe the tank down with acetone, and we're going to spray it with a little Eastwood's rust encapsulator, just so that this rust here, see like these spots here, I don't like these. I have this stuff on the shelf. You know, it's going to take an extra, what is it going to take, 10 minutes to spray it real quick, just a light coat, just to protect it a little, and you know, a half hour to dry. We could take a little half hour break. It's hot out. All right, so we hit it with Eastwood's rust encapsulated just to give it a fighting chance in the future. I didn't go crazy taping, just went around the lock ring a little bit, and then over here just a little bit. Nothing too crazy. I just didn't want to get paint where the hose slides on, because that's a reach getting those hoses to slide on. So now we got our spot there where the O-ring's going to go. I'm just going to put a little, I know some people are probably yelling, don't do that, don't lube that, but not on the inside of the tank. All right. So just a little bit of white grease where the O-ring's gonna go. I'm gonna put the O-ring in there. I'm gonna slide it around on the white grease, and then I'm gonna take the O-ring and I'm gonna flip it over. Alright, so now I got a little bit on either side of the O-ring. So when all this slides together, it slides nice and easy. So here's our replacement pump. Comes with the sock filter already on it, and you can see where we talked about those clamps. These are factory crimped clamps holding the hose on. There's our new ground. Our wires protected with a wire loom, which the old ones weren't. I'm surprised the old ones weren't on a Carter pump, but who knows if the assembly was replaced or just the pump. All right, here's your float. They put the float in a baggie. I don't know if the float absorbs gasoline or absorbs moisture, and that's why they put it in a baggie. I'm not 100% sure. And I'm looking at the tank the way I was looking at it, getting it out of the car and putting the hoses on. There's a locator tab here and a locator tab here so that you're getting it in the right spot. So what I'm going to do is just going to fish it through. Like that. And you can see the locator tab right there and there. I just got to make sure your O-ring doesn't pop out of place. Alright, my O-ring's in place. I'm in the two grooves for the locator tab. Now I can take my new lock ring which you got to fish over everything like that, and then you got to fish your wires up through it as well. Probably. All right, and now you're going to find where it sits back down in the groove, and you could run it in, and you might actually, it locks in by hand just like that, and that is in. Didn't even need a punch to get it all the way in. I guess I could move it just a hair more. It looks like I got a little, like a 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch. That is in, and that's in good. So you can see there's little O-rings. I looked in the fuel lines on the vehicle side, couldn't find any O-rings, so I don't think the other pump either had or they installed the O-rings. What I am going to do is just really on the threads. Not worried about the O-rings because it was tough getting these off. They were really seized up, and I bent these lines trying to get them off. I had a hard time, so I'm just trying to give it a fighting chance. And then what I'll do also is I'm going to put a little here on this vent, and then I'm going to put a little here on this vent as well, so I could slide those hoses on easily, and the same thing on this. Really don't want it mixing with the fuel, so I'm just trying to put a little so that when I slide those hoses on, they got a little lube. I'll wipe it off the edge, and they should slide on a lot easier. These should thread on a lot easier. And what you could also do is the spot where they do have a tendency to corrode is where those fittings fit on the shaft. So you put a little bit like that, just wipe it with your finger a little bit, so that now we can try to mitigate some of the rust in between the fitting and the steel line. Alright, and now we're just going to bring it over to the vehicle. We're going to slowly jack it back up. We'll hook these two lines up first, and then we can get it closer and then pop the hoses on, and hopefully get it up into place. The only thing we're going to have to do is I want to make sure that my ground is going to the original spot, and we want to make sure we got a good clean ground. And then this wire is going to go straight back where it plugs into the vehicle side. Well, we put the tank back onto the floor jack with the piece of wood under it to hold it steady, and it was really a two-person job. So we put the camera down and got the tank up tilted this way so that we can make the connections for the two fuel lines that thread in. The two threaded ones, the two vapor lines that just have hose clamps on them were real easy. So we made those connections, which were difficult to say the least. It just took a lot of contorting on the ground, and once those connections were made, everything else that just has a hose clamp, they pretty much came together fairly easily. And then once the connections were made, we lifted the tank up with the floor jack and the piece of wood under it. I got this wire hanging in my face. Up tight. We positioned the straps so that they were in the center of the groove on the tank, and then we just slowly started to snug up the straps until pretty much I looked at the dirt line on the old strap bolt as my reference on how tight to make it. And once I got near that dirt line, I just gave it a couple more, and I made them snug, made sure my anti-vibration rubbers were centered in the straps, and everything looks good. Now what I'm doing is I'm undoing the temporary ground, or the ground fix that I had done, And I'm just taking that out of here, and I'm gonna put the factory ground back in, and the filler neck I still have to do. We got the hose back on, so after we got all our connections on the tank and got our tank up and in place, we snaked it arm up there and got the filler hose on and above the chassis rail, and now the filler neck piece has to go in, which is pretty self-explanatory. I'll show you that in a second. I got this wire in the way. Robbie, if you could give me a pair of snips, dikes, side cutters, wire cutters. All ground right down because I'm not using that anymore. And I got my fuel pump plugged in and snapped in up top. I got a zip tie on it, holding it up and out of the way so it doesn't get in the way of anything. And everything looks good back here. So now what I could do is come around up here, and here's my ground wire coming off, and I got a hole in the top of the chassis rail, which I cleaned up with a little sandpaper, and I'm going to use a grounding washer, a flat washer, and the original bolt to put my ground in. So here's our two original ones, the green and crusty grounds. I don't know why there was a ground added. Maybe they had a ground problem and previously, and they put that Scotch-Lite connector and gave it another ground and another ring terminal. It's the only thing I can think of, because one is the original, this one is the original that came off the original pump, and then this one was added with the Scotch-Lite connector. I keep calling it a Scotch-Lite connector, I don't know, whatever that connector is. And this one went on there, so maybe this pump had a ground for a long time. So anyway, I'm going to use the original bolt, which is a self-cutting, you know, half-inch. Well, that's not a half-inch. It takes a half-inch socket or a 13 millimeter. I'm just going to put a little lube on it to make it easier to go back in. And I'm going to put a grounding washer. Then I'm going to put the ring terminal. And I'm going to put another grounding washer. And these are nice because they bite in to the chassis rail to give you a good ground. And I'm going to put these two in, and we should have a nice ground. And then I'll spray it with a little anti-corrosive spray, something like fluid film. I have PB Blaster brand fluid film on the shelf, and that's what I'm going to use to prevent any future corrosion. So I got the ring terminal sandwiched in between the two grounding washers. Find my hole up here. There it is. Okay, so that ground up top wouldn't get tight, so I found the hole. Found the hole in the chassis, and what I'm going to do is attempt to fish a nylon locking nut up. There is some wires there that I gotta try to knock out of the way first. I'm gonna try to fish this up behind it like that. I got it taped on. I'm gonna hold it there, and I am going to put, so I got a bolt, I got my ground, so I'm gonna go with a toothed washer, or the grounding washer as I call it, flat washer, toothed washer, the ring terminal, then another toothed washer. I'm going to stick this up like that, and hopefully I can thread it in. Okay, good. Now, here's my 7/16. There it is. Just that way. And I'm going to, oh, I came out of the thing. I'm going to tighten it up. All right, there's my ground. It's not pulling on anything. It's not gonna come loose. I got a nylon lockdown on the back of it. I got toothed washers or grounding washers, whatever you would call it. I'm just going to spray it with a little fluid film, and I think we're good. All right, a little fluid film on there just for some added protection, and now I can put the filler neck back on while Robbie goes and gets some gas. Well, it seems like everything on this project has been a little bit of a fight. So Robbie went to go get some gas, and I fought with that fuel filler neck, and then he came back, and it was just, it came out much easier than it came back in. It was just like stupid, you know, just like off by a hair. But we put some gas in it. He's gonna turn the key, and hopefully this thing will start up. All right, Robbie. It's gonna take a little bit. There's no gas in the system. Go ahead, Robbie. There we go. Thank goodness. A long road, it's getting dark, we're cleaning up, but it's finally fixed. Trying to troubleshoot it, narrowed it down to that ground, and you saw when we took that pump apart, it was burnt up inside because so we used it was already in the chassis, put our own ground in with a grade 8 hardware and a nylon lock nut that's not going to come out there, sprayed it with some corrosion resistant film, UV blasted anti-corrosion spray, and we'll be okay, and he can finally start driving it again. That's it. I'm tired. Pain in the ass to do it on your back, but it's not hard. It's just a pain in the ass because you're on your back. There's no good position to do anything. That's it today from Max's Garage. Questions, comments down below.